Are you looking to get ready, be prepared, and transform your financial future? Then you've come to the right place. This is the Get Ready Money podcast with Tony Stewart, where Tony has insightful conversations with financial experts who are changing the way we think about money. Catch up on the latest financial trends and hear practical advice from Tony and his expert guests so you can build healthy habits that work. Be empowered with tips for implementing small changes that can have a big impact on your financial future. So sit back and get ready to hear from today's guest.
Welcome to the Get Ready Money podcast, changing the way we think about money. I'm your host, Tony Stewart. When we talk about financial well-being, we can't ignore the connection to physical health. Today, I'm joined by Xavier Serrano, founder and CEO of Marqi Medical, to explore how taking charge of our health is one of the most powerful wealth preservation strategies available. Xavier, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Tony. This is my pleasure.
Yeah, excited to get into the conversation. So start out, with what is your origin story and what inspired you to start Marqi Medical?
I think it's typical entrepreneur's journey where I was very frustrated with the existing healthcare system. I've seen it let down, thousands and thousands of people. My role prior to leaving the health insurance industry was to oversee health plans and to mitigate the chronic diseases for large employer groups and group captives. And I was doing that for a number of years and just kind of being a small cog in a big wheel, putting programs in place for chronic disease management, pharmacy spend, urgent care, ER visits, all these different things that cause health plans to go up. But what I can tell you is that 80 to 90% of the costs for our health plans are chronic diseases, and they're coming out of the 10% of the population that we're seeing. And of course, that doesn't take into account, since I've left the health insurance industry, is the rise of pharmaceuticals, which is a whole other conversation, a whole other podcast on its own. But in 2020 was when the last thing that happened that made me think I have to do something about it. And that's my father, who's someone who exercised regularly, saw his doctor, ate well, for the most part, took care of himself his whole life. And, he almost died of a heart attack. And it was a big, big thing for my family. I just sat there. I remember sitting with him in the hospital bed and just thinking, gosh, if he makes this, I'll dedicate my entire life to changing the way that healthcare works and giving people access to foresight of what their decisions and what their body's doing beyond what traditional healthcare looks at. So I'm just here to advocate on those who don't know and would like to have access to, and I'm here to fulfill that promise.
Well, fantastic. Well, I'm glad your dad is recovering. So, tell us a little bit about what is Marqi Medical and how is it helping people?
So we are a national provider of AI services, advanced preventative healthcare to early detect chronic diseases and optimize health span. So we're sort of the opposite of traditional healthcare, where traditional healthcare looks at symptoms, gives you the pill, treats the thing that's blaring, but doesn't necessarily do a deep dive into your past medical history, doesn't do a deep dive into your genetics, doesn't do a deep dive into your family health history, your prescriptions, and looking all these different things. Doctors are generally overworked and believe it or not, underpaid. They are looking at 2,000 patient panels. They see everything in a silo, and they're only able to do so much. But with the advent of AI and this these services that can now be offered anywhere in the country. Our mission is to bring these services to as many people as possible and help early detect chronic disease and optimize health span.
Yeah, well, I think that's so important. Is that AI is really changing the game on these things and being used in so many creative ways that I think, I've had other guests on the show who've talked about how AI can really enhance the financial planning process. And I think this is an important part of that conversation. So I want to walk back to what you said about health span can you share what is health span and
Mm.
how that plays into an overall financial plan?
Yeah, so a lot of people are turned off by the idea of living longer lives and being in bad health, right? So the last 5, 10 years of your life, they really decline, especially folks who have, multiple chronic diseases. So the idea is that, whatever age that you want to live to, whether it's 80, whether it's 100, whether it's 120, it's about good quality years all along that continuum, and then a steep cliff at the end. Versus what we see today is it's a very gradual, long way down where the last, sometimes 5 years of your life, you may have dementia, you have no recollection of who's around you, you're in poor health. There's just a lot of people who that's the major scare. People are like, I don't want to live to whatever. I'm like, well, what if you live to 80, but the last 5, 10 years are you don't even know what your name is, and you have your family taking care of you. Like, oh, I don't want that. You're like, well, it's all related. It's all about getting you the highest quality of life, which we call it health span, healthy years of your life, and make those quality years so that you are able to enjoy your life in retirement, right? Because there's no sense in going to retirement. You're 65 years old. You're like, yes, I made it, and then you have a stroke and possibly mentally debilitating, where you're no longer able to function or enjoy your life the way that you imagined it. And I think that's the part that a lot of wealth advisors are getting wrong. Is it's not just the financial aspect of it, it's about health span, longevity, and good financial planning, because healthcare is the number one expense in retirement. And if you ignore that, and you get someone to a certain point and you're not at least pointing them in the right direction to, uh, you know, experts in the field, they could spend $315,000. That's the average amount that someone spends on retirement age, on healthcare costs, and they're not accounting for that. And that doesn't even include long-term care, which can add easily 108,000 per year. So you do the math. How fast does a little nest egg of a couple $1 million that you help the couple get into run out when you're spending that much money on healthcare costs?
Yeah, it is pretty amazing because, I know that's one of the things, that I've thought about with retirement is like, okay, will we be healthy enough to do these certain things? Is a lot of it is contingent upon that. And you think about, people that that are retired and some of the health struggles that they have. And, I don't think it's the way that most people want to, well, pretty much anybody wants to live. I think we could safely say nobody wants to live with poor health.
Right.
So it is important. And as you point out, it's like I know when I've run our retirement numbers is, that pool for healthcare expenses is
Mhm.
high. And with inflation, healthcare costs are rising faster than the cost of inflation. So it's like, okay, this isn't good. And there's going to be less physicians and less caregivers. So it's like, yeah, whatever we can do to extend our own health spans, I think is really important because healthcare is only going to get more expensive and more difficult to access. So,
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's definitely a growing cost and one of those things that again people aren't accounting for their retirement.
Yeah, completely agreed. So, let's talk about proactive healthcare. So, why is proactive healthcare essential to living that longer and healthier life? And what can people do to be proactive?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, right? It's how do we empower and educate people on the things they could be doing today to live a healthier, longer life in the future. And that's why I love the wealth preservation and wealth advisor space is because these folks get it. You get it. Like if you don't do the things today that set you up for 10, 20, 30 years down the road, you're not going to figure it out 30 years, be like, oh, I guess I better start saving for retirement. Be like, hey, buddy, that ship has sailed. It's gone. And the same thing happens with health. It's like, someone like take cardiovascular disease, the number one killer in America for most people. It's not something that happens slowly. It's builds over time. When people have a heart attack, it's because they get plaque deposits in their arteries, right? And it builds up over time, just like we see in our teeth. Those things have to be cleaned out. But if you're completely unaware of it, right? If you're not getting your checkups regularly, if you're not asking the right questions for your physicians to look into your health, they could look at your charts, which we have hundreds, if not thousands, of people that we look at, and their cholesterol numbers look great and they look fine, and they just go, "No, you're good," just like my father. Your numbers look fine, no issues there. But if you just were to ask them a question, be like, "Well, what's my calcium score? Have you done a CT scan? And have you done all these other diagnostic things?" Now you can take that risk and reduce it up to 90%. Your cardiac risk goes down 90% by just doing these simple things and understanding what your calcium score is, exactly how clogged your arteries are, how much plaque deposits in there, and most people don't do it, and so it's a shame that we have so many people dying each year from a heart attack. One of my good friends, John, died at 46 years of age. Healthy individual, family of two kids, a wife, young family, right? And it's just so sad that he wasn't able to have opportunity to ask these questions and get these things taken care of because he'd still be alive today. So it happens from as young as 43s. I mean, we just our diabetes population is increasing significantly in America. The number of people having heart attacks is increasing as well, and it all comes down to education, lifestyle choices. Of course, the thing that people don't want to hear about, they want the easy pill. There are pills that will help, so that is available. However, at the end of the day, it's getting those cholesterol numbers down, understanding what you need to do in order to avoid and prevent these diseases. Understanding your genetic risk is another important thing. Again, nobody talks about that, and that's a very important topic that everyone should be having with their healthcare provider.
So, is this a conversation that the average person can have with their healthcare provider?
You know, I think the average person doesn't know what questions to ask is the
Mhm.
problem. And we actually just rolled out, and this is not a promotion thing, but since you asked the question, you need the tools. I think the average person could get there using, what's available out there, ChatGPT, if they're, familiar, they might be able to get there. But the easiest thing to do is to upload all your health data into someone who's aggregating all that information, answering some questions about your family health history, so through a health risk assessment, and then inputting all that data, which is a lot. Some people have hundreds of gigabytes of data, and that's the biggest challenge. And then having a report to tell you exactly what your top health risks are exactly which doctors to talk to, exactly what lifestyle choices you need to make. And that's a big part of what we do. But you could potentially hack it together if if you can have access to a an AI that can input that much information. We built something for our members in-house, but that's probably the best starting point is what are the questions? What are the risks? What should I be talking to my doctor about as far as different tests that I should be looking into?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. For me, it comes down to, that's pretty much the point of the show and the work that I do is that it's really about asking the right questions. If you don't know the right questions to ask, you're not going to get the right answers.
Right.
The whole financial literacy movement has been built around like, let's get people to do these things, but we're not helping them understand what questions to ask. So it's like, uh, going in to buy tires. I look at that as an example for myself is when I go in to look at tires, I ask the tire salesperson, like, okay, what's the difference? What would you put on your own car? But it's because I don't know the right questions to ask, but at least I can get them to tell me their opinion and what questions they would ask when they were looking at tires. So, to pick up their knowledge. And I think that's an important thing. So, one question about Marqui Medical, is it a service that's available directly to consumers or is it advisor only?
It's both. So we partner with advisors, we partner with medical providers. We have a partnership with a life insurance company, and we also do direct to consumer. So anyone can access our tools. We can even just start out with a free tool that's offered to everybody. You can go on our website, um, and you can access a health quiz, and it'll start to get you to the point where you can start asking the right questions to your provider, and it'll start making health recommendations based on the responses of your current health history. It's not as good as getting actual data, right? It's like you can only get so far with that without understanding, hey, this is what your cholesterol, this is what your lipid panels, and all these different tests are telling us about your health. But it's a really, really good starting point, and it's at no cost, which is, always attractive to the average consumer.
Yeah, well, that's a fantastic resource. And for everybody watching and listening, there, of course, will be a link to that health assessment so you can check it out for yourselves. I know I'm going to check it out after we're done recording. So, let's get back to the conversation about the physical health and financial health. So, how does our physical health directly impact our financial health? We talked about it a little bit with the cost, but what goes beyond that to really impact our financial health? What are the other, I guess, parameters or impact?
Yeah, I'm a huge numbers guy. So again, my background is working with actuaries and coming up with healthcare costs. And to everyone listening, we've had AI for a long time. We just didn't call it that. Anytime you're predicting something based on data, you're sort of doing AI. So actuaries, insurers, we've had access to this stuff for years. We just didn't have access to it over everything. And now it's incredible because we can apply it to whatever we want. But some of the things that people aren't thinking about is, hard and soft costs of your health, right? For a wealth advisory firm, it's like, what does it cost to replace an executive? Well, the average cost is 200% of their annual salary, according to Gallup polls. We're looking at absenteeism. How much time are they taking off? They're taking off on average 8 days per year for just being sick. Maybe that's more if you have a chronic disease, right? Because you're dealing with more issues. Presenteeism. So now you're showing up, but you're not at your best. So what does that do? That obviously depletes the output of your organization. Um, Productivity. again, tied into presenteeism, but how productive are you if you're constantly stressed, getting poor sleep, and worried about your health issues, right? That's a metric that directly impacts your company. Then there's, of course, catastrophic claims and what that does to your health insurance. We just talked about healthcare being the number one expense in retirement. Well, if it's costing the insurance company 150,000 or 240,000, which is the average for a catastrophic claim, then that part of that is going to be on you, right? You have your co-insurance that you're paying for. A lot of stuff is out of pocket, especially if you want access to better quality care. And all of these expenses add up. I mean, these are the things that nobody's really talking about or thinking about, but it's all tied into your, longevity, your financial planning. But nobody's really putting in these inputs as part of that overall strategy.
Yeah, I think that's important is, one of the things that we talk about here, and I think this is an important distinction for people, is the difference between healthcare costs and health insurance costs. Is, oftentimes it's easy to get the two mixed up. The healthcare costs is what the provider is actually charging. Health insurance is a mechanism for paying for healthcare costs. So when we look at it and we say, well, health insurance premiums are going up by 10% a year, is that a reflection of just the insurance company, or is it a reflection of the healthcare market and the services that we're talking about? Is so right now, the GLP-1 drugs, the weight loss drugs, are super popular. But if I understand correctly, and I don't have data, you probably have the data on this, is it $1,000 a dose or something like that?
Yeah, it's a little bit more than that. And obviously it depends on which provider you're going with, but yes, it's a significant cost. And a lot of what people aren't thinking about, and this is again closer to my world, and I've been out of it for the last 5 years, so I definitely would not consider myself a health insurance expert at this point. But when the increases are, I think they're averaging around 10% right now. When your health insurance premiums are going up 10%, what you're not seeing is, and the mothers listening to this will be like, yes, that's absolutely right, is that the increase in your out of pocket is significantly higher. So we're having higher deductibles, higher co-pays, higher co-insurance, higher out of pocket maximums, less in-network coverage. All these things add up. So when you're thinking, oh, it went up 10%, my portion's, whatever. Hopefully, you have a good company that pays for significant portion or all. You're not just going up that 10%, but you're going up significantly higher with your out-of-pocket expenses. And again, nobody's accounting for this in their annual budgeting process. Now, I mean, I guess some folks are, right. They're putting more into their FSAs, HSAs, especially if you have a good wealth advisor. But at the same time, those go up every single year, and depending on your health plan can be brutal for the average family.
Yeah, and and looking at it this way, I know nobody feels any sympathy for insurance companies, but I think that we all need to understand that at the end of the day, health insurance companies have to be profitable in order to pay a premium. So, walking back to the GLP-1 drugs, if they're $1,000 a week, and then we're talking that the health insurance company has to pay $50,000 a year to pay for that. Is that
Comes
that
out of
is going to
someone's
have an
pocket.
impact? Yeah, the insurance companies aren't charities, unfortunately. And yeah, a lot of health insurance companies have done things that may be, borderline, but just generally overall, and this is something that other guests have talked about on the show, is that insurance is a mechanism of transferring risk. And when the costs go up for insurance companies, and we look at that with homeowners insurance and how they're not writing insurance policies in places that are prone to wildfires, flooding, or earthquakes, it's because they can't afford to. So there is that transfer of risk component that we need to understand and that we need to budget for as part of our financial plan. So that's an important thing. So, before we start to wrap up, what are a few simple wellness strategies that anyone can start implementing today that you'd recommend? Maybe just two or three.
Yeah, they're gonna be super basic, but one of the top things that we're constantly having people is the quality of sleep is diminishing for individuals. So I'll give you kind of my our basic strategy. We're probably, 8 or 10 things that you can do, but I think people can remember three, so we're gonna stick with three.
Hmm.
So better night's sleep tonight is 3 hours before bed. That's when you should have dinner. 2 hours before bed, that's when you should be um, consuming your last glass of milk, water, or whatever you're having. And then 1 hour before bed, you got to stop with the electronics. The blue light and the way what it does to your brain makes it very, very difficult for the average person to be able to relax fully and get a good night's sleep. And that's well documented. So 3, 2, 1, 3 hours before you're having your last meal, 2 hours last glass of water, and 1 hour completely detox from your electronics. That will probably take care of 60, 80% of the people out there that have trouble sleeping, self-induced. And then one other thing that I'll leave with you is get some sort of, and I know this is like not popular, but you could do it for anyone can do it for one day. Just learn how to do this, and it'll carry tons of benefits for your whole life. You just do this for one day is use a tracker of your calories to find out exactly what you're putting in and how many calories you're taking in. You'd be amazed at the chips and the sauces and the ketchups and the preservatives and all this stuff that you put in. They make it really easy now. There's a ton of great apps out there um, that you can use. uh, you can do a barcode scan and it takes all the information. So it's no work if you just have a barcode scan. It'll even do a meal. You can take a picture of the meal and it'll guesstimate on what you're having. Get yourself a scale so you can figure out exactly what you're eating. And you're just like, oh wow, I didn't realize that was 2 cups or whatever it is. But yeah, I think that's super helpful. I just did egg white with spinach, and it's like one of the best foods you can have. It's super low in calories, high in fiber, high in protein, and it'll actually make you really full. It's like the equivalent of 4 eggs. Spinach is like 20 calories for like a ton of spinach. And then of course if you're good at cooking, you can put a little bit of feta and different sauces and stuff like that, make it actually taste edible. But yeah, I mean, it's like the best deal in calories and protein consumption. So it's probably more than what people wanted, but little insight to little things that you can do, right? And you have a big payout, right? Because we talked about cholesterol being and heart disease being one of the major issues that we have in America, and diabetes, of course, and that's all impacted through our daily choices, just like saving money. It's like nobody wants to save, a couple $100 a day or whatever it is a month. But it's these little changes that add up and make big payoff, big dividends in the long run.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point to stress is that little things do have big payouts. And unfortunately, sometimes they are delayed. You're not going to see the change immediately. I want to walk back because this is a question I've had when I hear the advice about e-readers. So, I use Apple Books and they have like a night shift mode and everything, and other people use Kindles. Do any of those devices, are you still, do you know if that
Yeah,
still gets
Kindle
rid of blue light?
Yeah, Kindle's better than iPad, so it doesn't emit the blue light that your iPad will. So that's definitely helpful. You can get glasses. Usually I have them here somewhere because I should be wearing them while I'm on behind the computer. I just don't always remember to do it, just like everyone else. But you can do certain things like that, especially if you're a reader. At night, I would definitely go more towards the Kindle than the iPad. And you can do filters if you have an iPad. You can easily put something on there to take care of that. But it's if you're gonna read something, make it something mindless, like a nonfiction. Don't get into anything that's gonna make your brain really go. So there's some stuff around there, but I think the best thing again, try it for one night. You'd be amazed. Just one night, no electronics. Talk to your spouse, just get off of the electronics. It took me a long time. Now I'm a wake up at 5:30 every morning, exercise. I get a good night's sleep, go to bed early guy, but I wasn't for a long, long time. So it took me a long time to get there. And this is all a journey, right? Like you're not gonna be great at something day one. You gotta get just incrementally 1% better every day, and it adds up.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic advice, and I appreciate that. I know that was a little personal. So, to wrap up, we have the Get Ready Hot Take Trio, which are three quick questions to help our listeners change the way they think about money. The first one is, what myth are you trying to break about health and wealth?
Uh, I think one of the biggest ones is that your genetics or you have a predisposition that you can't change, and that's absolutely not true. Genetics, depending on the variant, of course, but in general, it only accounts for about 10% of your likely output. The rest of it is lifestyle based.
I love that. It only accounts for about 10%. I'm making a quick note. So the next question is, what advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know now about health and money? What would you do differently if you could go back in time?
Yeah, I consider myself a slow learner. There's a lot that I would change to get myself, in a better position. But I would say, as far as for wealth, I would have started a lot earlier, saving. I think if you can spend 50, I don't know what the number is, but this is just for me. If you can spend 50% of the money that you make on your expenses and save the other 50 and just live off of 50, I think that would have been a huge thing. I do that now. So I don't worry about money per se. I just live in a situation where I spend less. I can have a nicer house. I can have a nicer car. There's always more that you can have. I can live in a nicer neighborhood. But I also don't stress, right? Like if I have my business has a bad month or something happens financially, we're going to be okay. So that would probably on the wealth side. And again, I'm the least qualified person to give advice. I don't know what that number is. It works well for me, and it makes sense. And then from the wealth stuff, sorry, from on the health stuff, I wish I would have realized how bad alcohol was earlier. I was someone who would drink a beer a day. Um, on the weekends, would drink, significantly more than a beer a day. And it just, it's kind of like that leaky, I don't know what we call it in the financial world, but that hole in your pocket where you might be putting a bunch of money in, but if it's bunch of it's coming out. So I would have just gotten better gains throughout my whole life because I've exercised in general my whole life, but I never really knew like how much those little changes kind of impacted. Now I almost never drink during the week. And then also I'm changing my diet around a little bit. But I would say, yeah, just probably that for me, at least for me, that would be kind of like my thing. Be like, hey, don't. Don't listen to the commercials about how cool it is. Don't think that that's the norm of what you should be doing. They want you to do that because that's how they get paid, and it doesn't have to be that way. You can be different.
I think that's um, a really good point is you can be different and you can make your own choices. I think, and that does relate to money because, Instagram's a great example. This is, people are seeing all these great trips and things that people are doing. And then they're like, well, why can't we go on vacation, and to all these places? And they don't understand that probably these people are paying for it, and I mean, obviously they're paying for it, but that they may be taking out loans or they may not be saving. So it's like, do what you need to do for yourself. And as you point out, is it's never too early to start. Um, thing that I always like to share is I used to be a raft guide, and when you were setting up for a rapid, there was a saying that you can never set up too early. So whenever you think you should be setting up, you should have been setting up a little bit earlier. So it's never a bad time to get started on making your moves. So the final question is, what is your number one tip for changing the way we think about health and wealth?
I'd say good measurements, right? And small measurements, looking at looking at things in the short run that can pay off in the long run. So one of the apps that I use tells me, hey, if you have this exact same day with these calories and this exercise, here's where you're going to be in 5 weeks. And that's
Oh,
really motivating because the average person's like, man, I had a good day, but I'm not seeing it. Like I'm exactly how I was yesterday. And it's hard because we don't, you're not measuring everything every single day. But I use some really great tools. So I mentioned we have an app that measures your food intake and all that stuff, but then it also forecasts saying, hey, this is where you're going to be in 5 weeks. This is where you're going to be in 6 months or whatever that time frame is. So that's motivating for you. And I'd say ditch the traditional scale. Like everyone should burn their existing scale. Is the worst thing ever invented in the world. We have better technology now. Get something that tells you exactly what your visceral fat, your bone density, your muscle mass, uh, and understand that that weight is more important than the end goal. So I'm for whatever reason, my body's really good at exchanging fat for muscle and muscle for fat.
hmm.
So I could be at the same weight for a month, and I just exchanged an equal amount. It's like the craziest thing. I just exchanged an equal amount, like 5 pounds of muscle for 5 pounds of fat. And on the scale, I could be like, man, this is horrible. Like I feel like crap. I've been busting my butt. I've been dieting well. I've been exercising regularly, and the scale hasn't moved. And that's what most people probably do. A lot of people do is they see that going on. Even worse for women because uh, hormonal and uh, cyclical cycles that curve their weight up and down throughout the month. So it's just measuring what matters and looking at things that are going to pay off in the short run, but also forecasting out. And you can apply the same for wealth advisory too, right? Good wealth advisors are showing you, hey, I know it doesn't seem like $1,000, whatever that number is per month makes a big difference, but here's what it looks like in 20 years compounding interest. And health is the exact same way. Here's what this little change does to you. And unfortunately, we're going the wrong direction. We're all getting, 2% fatter every year because of what's happening in the holidays and the food and all the other stuff. And we're not noticing it until it's too late.
Yeah, no, that's important is, just like with your numbers is you need to I mean your financial numbers is you need to look at your health numbers. So just real quick, what app were you talking about that you use for that?
So I use my Fitness Pal,
Okay.
and I'm not related to them in any way. Like I don't have a relationship with them. That's one that I use. We also have our own app. We can take pictures. We do have dietitians, and it's another way of tracking it. But they built the tech where you can scan barcodes, and we have it integrated into our system. And we're not trying to be a health app. We're trying to do something completely different. But that's a really good app to track things and will forecast for you. So I think they've done a really good job.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So Xavier, where can people learn more about you and Marquis Medical?
So marquimedical.com, and that's a unique spelling for Marquis. It's Marqi, and you'll get tons of like 100 different articles on longevity, health, different topics. We have the free health quiz, so you can figure out, what questions you should be asking, what things you should be looking into as far as testing protocols, lifestyle choices your um, uh, based on your responses, and then we've got some great entry level programs for folks that want to do a little bit more deep dive into their health and upload their health history into our portal and get a really great analysis on their existing health history and actionable insight for their doctors and for their health span.
Fantastic. Are you posting anywhere online, any social media sites or anything?
Yeah, we have all well, I wouldn't say all, but we have Instagram, Facebook. I'm personally more active on LinkedIn and let's see, I think TikTok. I know I'm always missing one or two of them, but yeah, those are the main ones.
Fantastic. And for everybody watching and listening, as always, there will be links to the Marquis Medical website as well as to Xavier and Marquis' social media links. So, Xavier, thanks again for coming on today and sharing your insights.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. This has been really fun. You asked some great questions, and yeah, I really appreciate you, Tony.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you as well. I mean, insightful for me. So I hope for everybody watching and listening that you picked up a few things as well. And thank you as always for tuning in. If you did learn something today, change the way you think about health and wealth, please be sure to subscribe and to share with a friend. You can also visit my website at tonystewart.com to join the Get Ready movement and access a whole range of tools to help you take control of your financial life. Until next time. Let's change the way we think about money.